Hello game fans and welcome to the Steam Chamber. Today we'll be looking at a game that we actually featured quite a while ago on one of our first Greenlight highlights videos, Evoland from Shiro Games. Now this game was greenlit and was very successful on Greenlight and is released today on Steam for full retail purchase. Now this isn't a beta game, this isn't an early access game, this is a full game that you'll be buying completed and finished. This game is a game that's based on a free web-based Flash game, which I think is still available to play on the game's website. I'll link below if that's the case. And it is essentially a genre-jumping RPG which explores the history of games. Now, this isn't just a game so much as it is a homage to classic games such as The Legend of Zelda and Final Fantasy. It's sort of a nostalgic look back at games from yesteryear with a real mix of graphical styles. It starts off very basic and evolves as you play. Now that's the real element of the game, is that you unlock different genre styles and different graphical styles and different mechanics and technologies as you play the game. So you start off very basic, very much Game Boy-esque, and you gradually unlock things such as sound effects, music, fighting, scrolling, as well as your general graphics advances as well. Now you think a danger with a game such as this is the earlier parts of the game would look terrible and you would just be waiting to get to the 3D graphics, but that's really not the case. The game looks great from the start, even when it's very much just basic blocky green monochrome graphics before you can, when the side scrolling's barely unlocked, before you've even managed to attack any enemies because there are no enemies on the screen. It's still a great looking game. I mean, it's just so sharp and pinpoint from the very start. At the very beginning, the game starts off as very much a Zelda-esque adventure game with just a basic attack pattern for attacking enemies. However, as the game progresses, you unlock new playstyles such as a turn-based fight system such as Final Fantasy. So you move into the game world where you can explore the map. And while walking around the map, much like Final Fantasy or Pokemon, you encounter random battles and are attacked, and then that takes you into a turn-based system rather than the real-time system. It's the same with dungeons. Some dungeons you're going to, and it will be a Final Fantasy style turn-based system. Other areas you'll go into and it will be a real-time combat situation, very much like Zelda. Now, speaking of the combat, the turn-based system is by far the simplest and easiest in the game. You never really feel like you're being pushed too hard during the turn-based fights. You're essentially just spamming the spacebar to attack and alternately attack and heal. However, in the dungeon-based combat, the Zelda-esque combat, you do feel like you are being punished at times. There are certain enemies that will appear randomly, such as red sorcerers who will spam you with fire, and as you try and get closer they disappear, and so you really do have to try and back them into the corner and hope they materialise near enough to you to hit them before they destroy your health. You have other enemies such as skeletons and knights that you cannot attack from the front because they're shielded, or they'll parry your attacks, and therefore you can only attack them from the side or the back. However, this can be hard to do without taking a hit yourself. So it's not necessarily for the faint of heart. It's not as easy as it always looks. In terms of appeal, I personally am not a huge fan of the Zelda and Final Fantasy games. I've dabbled, but the era that this is paying homage to, I really wasn't taking part in many of the games at the time. However, I still really enjoy this game. This isn't just a game for those that played the games at the time. Although it is a love letter of sorts to those classic games, it can still be picked up and played by someone who doesn't necessarily enjoy those genres. I myself really found myself being drawn into the game as it could be quite casual. I find that with a lot of the Final Fantasy-esque games and a lot of the Zelda-esque games I find they can move too slowly, there's too much text to read, there's too much backstory, there's not enough actual action. However, this game really doesn't suffer from that. It's pretty much action non-stop from the start, from beginning to end, and there really aren't too many lengthy bits on the side, such as too many lengthy trips to towns or too many NPCs. There really isn't anything too bad to say about the gameplay overall. I would like to have seen controller support. Maybe that's something they'll add at a later date. However, we're seeing that a lot lately. A lot of these indie games are coming out without controller support, and I think that's a mistake, especially for this genre. However, the control system is so simple that it's really not a bother to play it on the keyboard, and I really don't think it will present anybody with any other problems. As I mentioned earlier, this game is about unlocking new mechanics and graphical styles, and in terms of the graphics, they've done a really nice job. Some of the later stage graphics are fantastic, the 3D graphics are lovely, the sprites in the earlier parts of the game are really gorgeous. Audio wise, the music is spot on and absolutely perfect. It really does capture those old games, paying homage to them but also doing its own thing. Sound effects wise, it's really quite solid. I mean, there's nothing too advanced about the sound effects. It's very much, again, looking back at the older games in the genre and very much just playing up to those and sticking to the very much the classic systems. Actually, in terms of the graphics and sound, they really do pay rather close homage, if not rip off some of the some previous games. Early on, when you're going to chests, the chests just open, you get your new item. However, at one point you do unlock a camera zoom, so that anytime you get anything out of the chest, the camera spins around and zooms in on the player, Zelda style. There are a few things like that that are a bit close to the mark in steering away from homage and more into IP thefts, but I'm sure they're not too bothered about that, because at the end of the day, this game is all about saying thank you to a classic era of gaming. In summary, I don't think there's anything the developers rather could have done any better. I think this game is pretty good. The only thing that maybe might have been helpful is a bit more balance between the two styles of combat, maybe making the dungeon combat a little simpler and making the turn-based combat just a little tougher. However, this game is experience. It's not just a pick up and play game. This game is also an education. This game takes you back to a point in games that just doesn't really exist anymore. People try and capture that classic feeling of gaming all the time and try and play on the nostalgia of gaming by creating these new 8 and 16-bit games. However, I don't think any of them have got it half as right as Evoland have. The game is released on Steam later today. It should be up by the time this video is up. Please do, if you enjoyed the game, if you enjoy watching the game, go and buy the game. It's a great game. It's been executed really well. They're a really small indie team. Please do go and support them. If you've enjoyed the video, please do like, comment and subscribe, because it really does help us out and helps us get new subscribers and it makes it worth our while to put more videos up and put a bit more effort into the channel. So thank you.